Hello friends, I've entitled this presentation Electromagnetic U. This is my thesis on the nature of the electromagnetic universe. I believe the journey to liberation begins and ends with you. The universe could break down into you and I verse. Does this literally mean that you and I create our universe by speaking good or bad vibrations, just as described in the Old Testament when God spoke the world into existence? It also says the Word was God and the Word was with God. Well, this is indeed one of life's great mysteries, and may remain occulted unless we remember who and what we truly are. I'm going to lay down some challenging ideas. I may not have it correct, but are we not called to test all things? Modern materialist, reductionist scientism, and religionism, for that matter, have systematically and historically controlled the narrative, always with a particular theme, that you are not heart center of this universe, the divinely inspired intent of a higher source. Instead, we're either a lucky but exceptionally insignificant speck of primordial goo, Big Bang baboons to Goldilocks zone gas guzzlers in 4 billion blinks of a scientist's eye. Or, if that isn't demeaning enough of divine design and intent, then we're willfully wicked wannabe sinners, predisposed to wrongdoing and evil at every turn, and in desperate need of mastery, repentance, and 33 Hail Marys, when it may be that the only true Savior lies within you. Fruit rotten at the core rapidly decays, whilst healthy fruit endures. Misformed seeds yield misinformed produce, and slowly the cycle of decay brings the current cycle to an end, or adaptation point. Evolution of sorts, or devolution perhaps. The devil's in the detail. Well-nurtured livestock yield better outcomes. The good shepherd knows when to shear and tend his flock, balancing the varying needs of his sheep and goats, instinctive to the intuitive farmer, someone who is at one with natural cycles and a natural order, but not instinctive to one out of natural alignment. Even at base levels of understanding, most concede that we, mankind, are natural beings, and just as a tree is at its most vulnerable from seeding to sapling, so too a newborn natural child, from conception to 7 years. Environment and climate significantly determine the future prospect for a tree's maturation and longevity. Densely wooded forests with little sunlight, open space exposed to heavy weather, or precarious mountainside surrounded by hungry goats will have significant bearings on each living organism. And all of that before man intervenes, beneficially or harmfully. Okay, enough wordplay. Let's get to the heart of the matter. Electromagnetic cosmic egg universe theory requires no physical matter as described by Newtonian, Einsteinian, atomic-sized spinning breadcrumbs theories, but rather that all the known universe, both within and without, are the product of electricity and magnetism, a masculine and feminine interaction, co-creating and spinning in perfect harmony within a medium some call the ether, which creates density or matter. This becomes the first Trinity or Torus system, a reciprocating processional hyperboloid, or a torus. Is this Big Bang theory? Perhaps, but rather than exploding outwards, Trinity implodes inwards to a point of singularity, a point of immense density the brain decodes as a tree. It's a cohesive, joined up field in which derivations of this fundamental and observable collision of photons or light form at microcosmically small and universally large scale. The roof, walls, and floor of the macrocosm, the skin, or the zero, provides life with essential containment. In the case of the tree, we call this bark, an arc, or a spark. That's a clue for later. In the case of the universal egg, we call this firmament. It's a biblical term, and I'm using it for ease of understanding. It would appear there is a crystalline structure above us called the sodium layer, while thermodynamics demands containment for a pressure system in which we live and for it to develop. And all observable natural systems on Earth are contained within a skin, a peel, or a bark. So why not Earth itself? As above, so below, don't they say? A chicken egg has a complete encasement, within which a super thin sac which contains the wet bits, the yolk, and the albumin. On Earth, this super thin protective sac could be the sodium layer and surround upper and lower regions of our world. Nature is replete with Trinity systems. For example, the root bowl, tree trunk, and leafy canopy within an atmospheric ether medium we call air. That would be your tree. Mankind's legs, torso, or torus, and head, equivalent to the trisegmented scarab beetle with its abdomen, head, and thorax, another Torus word. These were revered by ancient Egyptians, and I think for good reason. The mother, father, and child, another Trinity, as is Christianity's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And it also extends to the electrical system found within our bodies and most household electrical appliances, with your positive red, negative blue or grey, and the earth, green or brown. But how does this relate to our electromagnetic universe? Well, let's begin with scientific evidence offered by primer field experiments conducted from 2008 onwards by David Lapointe and others. This experiment, which has been replicated by other scientists, is conducted in a sealed glass chamber and produces a highly energetic effect in a variety of gas mediums and ether. Results of these ongoing experiments stunned the stuffy scientific community because a spiraling accretion or creation disk appears between the two bowl-shaped magnets in the presence of a powerful electric current. And this is a key tenet of this thesis. Essentially, that this trinity of ether, electricity, and magnetism form matter as we recognize it on Earth and in Earth. Furthermore, when non-magnetized iron balls were inserted into the area of the accretion disk between the bowl magnets, they organized themselves into geometric patterns recognizable as the flower of life. Another clue to the true nature of our holographic reality, perhaps. Ferrocell and magnet demonstrations by Ken Wheeler and others offer exceptional perspectives on electromagnetic flow lines and the development of counterspace nearest the poles, which seems to create a black hole. These may be the equivalent to the magnetic poles on our Earth. Within each nut exists the potential for new life. However, the nut, the zero, requires three initiating factors for life to begin. These are 1. Seed. I suggest this is the magnetism, or sound, or vibration, which is, in mainstream science, the proton. It's the positive charge. 2. The spark of life. It's the electricity, the L, the light, the electron, and the negative charge. 3. The soil, or the soul, which is Earth, the green, and in mainstream would be the neutron. And I'm calling it the nut. It is also neutral. When the three are in harmony, they create, in our observable world, an orange-shaped toroidal egg or donut. Perhaps it's a oblate spheroid. To extend this fruity analogy further, the outer peel would be 0, it looks like a 0. Seeds within the fruit's center chamber would be number 1. Watery flesh of the fruit would be number 2. And that's your spark. Whilst the pithy white inner peel encasing the whole fruit and surrounding each segment would be number 3. This, I suggest, is a Gaussian surface that connects the flesh of the fruit to the electromagnetic source ether, similar to the pregnant fetal sac of new life, or perhaps the subcutaneous fatty layer beneath the human skin, which would be 0 in this context. And in this sense, the number 3, which is your soul or your soil, is not vastly dissimilar to 0, whereas the seed, 1, and flesh, 2, or magnetism and electricity, are hot and cold opposite energies, neither dispensable in the material world we experience on a day-to-day basis. So this trinity of implosive forces combine and manifest as a tree. Later, we can observe the explosive rending of these three forces by returning ashes to ashes. When felled, 1 ton of dried wood on a bonfire will make quite a show. A violently impressive spectacle of heat, sound, and light. DNA literally torn apart, disconnecting itself from its uniquely complex vibratory signature, which renders here as tree or wood. And now, after 33 years of life, the tree is returned finally to its fundamental components of light and sound, frequency and vibration, released upwards and radiating outwards vast but weightless energy, which has, by morning, reduced 1,000 kilograms of apparent weight to a sub-10 kilogram ash pile. What happened to 990 kilograms of solid matter? Just vanished? Gone up in smoke? We couldn't weigh it. So where's it gone? This is a big clue to the nature of matter and mass. Put quite simply, the weight and solidity of wood are constructs of a matrix-style simulation we currently inhabit. So whilst an object holds form within the visible spectrum, we interpret data inputs which our physical avatar interprets as a sensation via the matrix computer, supercomputer, or brain. The brain, or brain, water, electricity perhaps, is acknowledged by mainstream academia to receive and dispense electrical signals to and from all parts of the human avatar. Circulatory systems are electrically charged, and the heart may be a pump, a magnet, powered only by electrical impulse in the field, the ether, breathed through the lungs, and perhaps even exchanged through the skin. We may be electrical beings, and I believe that we are. How does this prove an electromagnetic earth realm? Well, it doesn't. But what I'm doing is laying out some of the natural and demonstrable concepts which underpin a leap in thinking from programmed and materialist perceptions of reality to the possibility that every life form we experience in our world, sentient or not, is metaphysical energy expressed within a spectrum of light discernible by us as material, toroidal energy. Not dissimilar to how we imagine the electron spinning in a circular orbit or orbitals around a nucleus. Always in flow, always cycling or recycling infinitely. But not as a distinct particle as imagined by Rutherford, Bohr, nor the quantum cloud type theories of the mid-20th century. It is admittedly challenging to describe processes beyond our perception or testable science. So I will use the tree of life to assist. Using the 3 fundamental elements of root, trunk, and branch, this example scales up to universal magnitude and down through the leaf to the smallest known particle of physical matter. But different matter has different densities and properties, I hear you cry. Yes, they do. And in an electromagnetic realm, different compounds are more likely to be product of rate of spin, number of photons, and specific compression of each toroidal system, a unique harmonic of the orchestra, a vibration or frequency that renders each element we call the periodic table. So let's imagine our tree of life as a single electromagnetic organism, a Trinity torus system. Kirlian photography and other methods reveal the electromagnetic coronal discharge extending well beyond the hard visible border of the tree. Although limited, Kirlian highlights the energetic aura of living matter, and in the same way iron filings show flow lines on a bar magnet, so too the root and canopy of a tree creates the hourglass infinity 8-shaped torus, with trunk as center spindle, accretion layer, or pinch point. The longer the tree lives, the taller and thicker the pinch point becomes. Many tree trunks physically display spiral twisting fiber and bark arrangements similar to a vortex the water makes when flowing down the plug hole. Root and canopy bowls mimic primer field magnetic bowls, opposite electromagnetic polarities in a Gauss field, whilst the circular trunk represents an accretion disk, as the opposite polarities are stimulated in the presence of an electrical charge, such that energy is accreted, secreted, or created as trunk, branch, and leaf. Okay, if root and canopy are bowl magnets, where is the electricity? Well, their tree is full of electricity in the form of water and sunlight. We call that photosynthesis. And likely moonlight may have a part to play in this process too. Water carries an electrical charge. Water may also be ether, denser than air we breathe, and breathe is an anagram for be ether, likely caused by pressure differential from top to bottom of the enclosed system. So the tree trunk is merely the product of electromagnetic activity? No, not quite. Remember the primer field experiments? Crucially, they required a gas medium within a sealed container, an ether, from which accretion or creation could occur. And I believe it is this ether, air and water, which holds the key to life itself. For without this medium, no thing could form or materialize in the electromagnetic field. Water of life, breath of life, common phrases in English, perhaps truth too, just like sea level. Okay, so if this hasn't already irritated a few old school scientific beliefs to the core, some of you may have switched off by now, wait till you hear this. The only way to create light sufficiently dense to form physical matter is to slam it into a black hole. Wait, what? Science taught us black holes were violent death portals into which all light is drawn, creating immense density, and nothing can be known about what awaits the other side. Yes, they did teach us that, but the incredible truth of an electromagnetic universe is that to create the critical mass, light must be squeezed, crushed, or imploded, slammed into a metaphysical lead wall where, for a brief moment, it stops, materializes into physical compounds that we can recognize, and then, like sand through an hourglass, begins the process of dematerializing through natural decay, bonfire, or other means, on its return once more to white light speed, rising and highly energized to continue through the top of the torus, perhaps a white hole in the roof of the field, before reciprocating once more back around the outer shell, following the same path around and under and back up into the black hole beneath us. An infinity loop, black-white, off-on, black-white, 0, 1, 0, 1. The infinity loop is typically denoted as a number 8, lying on its side. We all know the infinity symbol. So I'm going to ask you to imagine our tree of life uprooted lying on its side, trunk now horizontal, like a bar magnet. Root bowl and canopy, the magnetic flow lines, a 3D spray stretching out and back around to a midpoint, an equator, the equitorus, the waist or pinch point of the number 8, the region where North Pole or bowl meets South Pole or pole. How does the sun work in such a lopsided system? Well, South U North, SUN, suggests a trough or channel between the North and South Pole. This is the depression that forms between the opposing bow waves created by the strong force of each magnetic pole. Our tree of life top is offset by 23.4 degrees above the horizontal plane of inertia. Evidence for that would be the position of the North Pole pole star. Then I speculate a Gauss field, like the bark, carries an electrical pulse to the tree. Or on Earth plane, the electrical pulse travels through the sodium layer, transferring itself into the ether from roof to floor, moving like an electric tsunami wave east to west, following the spiraling toroidal flow created by the field. In all likelihood, the electrical pulse never starts or ends, but is a continuous feedback circuit, a loop, or the Ouroboros, created by the movement of ether over the bar or horseshoe magnet we call Mother Earth, Ma, magnet. So the trunk receives a rising, falling pulse each day via the thesis tsunami, hugging the whole tree, imparting a charge, feeding the trunk, the solar plexus, creating growth rings in a process that essentially crushes light into matter through electromagnetism. In this hypothesis, our moon and sun could be the confluence of the electric tsunami washing across space between floor and roof, cresting midway between the two poles, south and north, at equinox. Seasonal movement of the crest between north and south, Cancer and Capricorn, would be caused by fluctuations or perturbations in a shift in charge potential between the south and north pole. This may be an explanation for the sun, but the moon is completely opposite, cold and blue, not orange and hot. How would this model account for this? Well, there's a number of contenders for this, but a theory emerged recently suggesting Earth is somehow X-rayed from beneath and reflected above as moon craters. This works quite nicely alongside this idea, insofar as whatever charge is emitted into the pith or sodium layer of our universal orange, the fruit having fallen from the tree lying on its side will travel both above the bar magnet and below. As above, so below. The electrical ether pulse that brings daylight also travels beneath the core, moving more slowly due to density of the lower realm. This pulse emanates through the Earth crust, bounces off the sodium layer as a cold blue light. And that may be our moon. Although this postulation can't answer all questions and resolve the unresolvable, it is a first thrust at refining a new model. For those unconvinced by electromagnetic torus theory, consider the following names. The female CLI, Torus, is stimulated, creating a magnetic attraction of the electric lightsaber sperm, which develops life in her uterus. Why is this hidden? Why is this occulted? Imagine a world in which resources are infinitely recycling, refreshing, and renewing. A system that, by necessity, requires polarities of hot, cold, acid, alkaline, yin, yang. Many modern concerns of resource limitations become moot in this model. And, as good shepherds, we can better learn to master our ship, our temple of God. My hypothesis is that just like the chicken egg, once this universe was laid, it was laid on its side. The natural order of all things on earth is to lay down. It is merely with the strength of the potential energy within the tree or within the human that allows it and us to stand up against this natural order, which is for things to lay down. So instead of the north being above our heads, because the traditional Torus depiction has the person standing up, they should be lying down to depict this accurately. And that the navel should be the joining point, the solar plexus area should be the joining point of the south polarity and the north polarity, which would create your equatorus or torso of the electromagnetic U and the electromagnetic universe. I hope you found this information interesting, useful. Please comment, subscribe, and if you can, make a donation.